love, attachment, and jealousy. The event is sponsored by the Tara Buddhist Center of Nashville, Tennessee. And for those who are maybe not so familiar, please maybe after this event, do visit our website, like us on Facebook, and you can also follow us on Instagram. And of course, we would love to maybe see you all in person at our center someday. Okay, and moving along, I do want to introduce our distinguished guest of honor. We're very grateful for him gracing us with his presence today. This is Tenzin Osel Hita. Tenzin Osel Hita is the recognized incarnation of FPMT's founder, Lama Thupten Yeshe. He is a 21st century radical free thinker, humanitarian, documentary filmmaker, musician, father, friend, lifelong student, and former Buddhist monk. In 1987, when Osel was just 1 year old, His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama confirmed Lama Zompe's Rinpoche's observation that the son of Lama Yeshe's students, Maria Torres and Francisco Hita, was the unmistaken reincarnation of FPMT's founder, Lama Yeshe Osel. Okay, so Osel, how are you doing today? If I can. Hello, Osel, are you with us?
Osel, you have to unmute.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it's breaking up a lot. My internet is good, so I'm not sure if there's an issue or not, but it breaks up a lot. So I'm not able to hear everything.
Okay, Osel, yeah, and then, all right, well.
Just to let you know.
Okay, thank you, Osel. Thank you for letting us know that. Well, Osel, so good to see you and so good to have you here with us. Thank you for taking the time. One small request, Osel, just before we begin our conversation, would you mind leading us in just some kind of prayer to set the proper motivation?
Oh, you want me to do it?
Because yeah, would you mind?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's breaking up constantly, so I can only hear like one word somewhere. Okay. Sangye chedang soge chanamla chanjo bardo dane geso je dage jinso give sonam ge rola penje sangye dubara sho sangye chedang soge chanamla chanjo bardo dane geso je dage jinso give sonam ge rola penje sangye dubara sho sangye chedang soge chanamla chanjo bardo dane geso je dage jinso give sonam Drola Penje Sangye Drubara Sho.
Thank you so much again, Osel. So Osel, for today's conversation, we have some questions that were submitted to us by members of the Tara Buddhist Center based on their own life experiences and life circumstances, dealing with relationships, issues of love, jealousy, heartbreak. So I will begin with our first question. So this is question number 1. What are things that we should work on ourselves before we choose a life partner? So before we go on to try to find a life partner, what are things that we should work on in terms of ourselves? This is question number 1.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to read it because it's breaking up completely, so I really can't hear anything. So I have the list of the questions here. Am I breaking up? Just to know? Am I
No,
breaking up?
You're good. You're good. You're good.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the first question: what are the things we should do? What are the things we should work on ourselves before we choose a life partner? Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Osel. Yes.
So I think the only life partner is ourselves. not only life partner, but forever partner. Because there's no beginning to the mind, you know, it has no beginning, it has no end. So it's a never-ending story, even though it's impermanent because it's changing. But philosophically, it's never-ending. That's the theory, at least. So I think it's more important to think about you being your own partner before projecting on other people. I think that is the first mistake we make, because we go into a relationship with an idealization, and that is a root cause of it not working. So I think that's the first step would be that to recognize oneself as your best friend, as your life partner. You're female and you're male, right? You have the union within yourself. And then once you have that, then, you know, whoever you meet or whichever kind of relationship you have in life, it will be very different, you know, because you'll be coming from a much more realistic point of view. So I think that would be really the important part to start off if you want to, you know, project a life partner or something like that, which I don't recommend.
Well,
when you're ready, if it has to happen, it will happen. If your frequency is correct, if you are working on yourself, then you will attract, or you will be able to create that kind of situation. But if you don't work on yourself, then you can't really expect, you know. And even if somebody does appear in your life, if you're not properly, if you're not, you know, channeling correctly and you're not centered, then it will be a disaster, like most of relationships.
And it just happened pretty automatically.
Sorry?
So getting grounded.
sorry, we're just going to ask everyone to mute themselves during the actual during the conversation portion. This is not that we don't want to hear your insights, but please do keep yourself muted.
So that, yeah, that's it. And I finished for the first question.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Osel.
So that's the first question. I think that's what we should work ourselves before. I mean, we just have to recognize we are our own life partner, and we just have to stop inventing a lot of stories that will disappoint us. You have to be realistic.
Absolutely.
Because everything is temporary. I mean, not everything, obviously. Emptiness, the empty space is not temporary. But we tend to project and get attached to things as if they were permanent, you know. And one of the reasons is that, you know, because we project that, we keep projecting that. So we have to be very realistic, you know. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult in any relationship.
Thank you so much, Osel. I'll go on to question number 2, and just in case you're having trouble hearing me, this is the list. It's a very cute dog.
Yeah.
Question number 2 is, what are the qualities a life partner should have? So if we're out looking for somebody, what qualities would you recommend for us to look for in that person?
So again, this is another mistake. We do not have to look for the qualities in the other person. That's none of our business. It's not our job. It's not our responsibility. Our responsibility and our job is to look at our own, you know, qualities and to see what we're doing wrong. The moment we project on the other person, that's already we're making the mistake everybody does, to project and condition, you know, the person. Because the person I mean, for love to be there has to be space. Two birds cannot fly if they're stuck, right? They need space to fly together. So if you project a need, if you project a conditioning, of the kind of qualities that you want or what you don't want, already you're setting yourself up for disappointment. And not only that, you're giving a big responsibility to the other person, which maybe they're not really, that's not really their job at that moment. Maybe they have to work on something else. So it does have a kind of a conflict. If I put it as an example, like if I'm going to be in a relationship and the person who I'm with projects the type of person I should be, then that's not love. That's attachment. Right? Oh, I will love you if you're only with me. Oh, I will love you if you are like this. Or I will love you if you do this or do that, or don't do this or don't do that, or act like this or don't act like that, or say this or don't say like that. Well, that's not love. That's just a selfish need. Clear. The moment you want to change the other person, the moment you focus on the other person before even checking on yourself, then big mistake. So really what you should be doing is making sure that you have the qualities that you want to see in a partner. That would be my advice. If you're able to, if you want certain qualities, then you have to, grow them. And once you grow them, you can share that. And then that person can learn from that. So then in a way you can influence the other person by showing the qualities that you would like in them. But even then, still, that's not very good motivation. The important thing is just to try to do the best you can, and then try to accept the person, because that's true love.
Well, thank you again, Osel, for those insights. I hope you're able to hear me better now. I don't know if the reception has improved
Yes.
on your end. Great. That's great to hear. So while our previous questions had to do with maybe working on yourself, looking for a partner, our next question is, once you're in a relationship, once the relationship has started, what is the difference between healthy and unhealthy love? So you're already in the relationship. How can you tell if this is something that's healthy or unhealthy for you?
So most of the time it's probably going to be unhealthy. Most of the time.
Okay.
Because we do live in a society and in a system that it's a little bit upside down. It has the values completely upside down. Right? So it's just a matter of time before conflict arises. It may be very nice at the beginning, very romantic, idealization. But because from the beginning we have neglected, checking on ourselves, and instead we project on the other person, then already the first mistake is already there. So it's almost, it's hard to avoid, Of course, there's many different type of people, many different couples, because and a relationship doesn't only have to be couple. It can be any kind of relationship. For example, the dog and human relationship, or friends, family, work partners. There's many different types of relationship. You can really, you can't obviously generalize completely, but there is many aspects that do relate to each other. So I would say that, that from the beginning we really have to have that very clear. So unhealthy and healthy, basically it's based on us, because many times if we have an unhealthy aspect of ourselves, we'll probably project that on the other person and try to make ourselves believe that the other person is the problem. That the other person is the one who's not acting properly or not following up on what the group needs or whatever it is, So that's why, most of the time we are just kind of like not really checking ourselves. And one of the reasons why we're so interested in having a partner is because it makes it very easy not to have to check. Until the shit starts coming up. Then it's all drama. right?
Yeah.
Of course, it's a question of time, and obviously in all the relationships there's going to be some issues. It doesn't mean that it's bad, so you can't really take one thing and make it big. You know, I mean, it's going to be like that. My grandparents, they were together for 75 years, married for 75 years, and of course they had fights. It's normal, you know. But my grandfather used to say, the secret is to say yes. You're right. That's my grandfather's secret. He said, that's how a relationship survives, is when you have to say yes. One person has to say yes. Otherwise, it's impossible. You cannot survive. Because, I mean, of course, if both people do have that kind of heart and they're capable of really working on themselves, then that's amazing. That's really, that is, for me, it's magic. And I know people like that. I know families that are really united and they really take care of each other and love each other, and the children just thrive, you know, and that is so beautiful. But of course, the two individuals have to be very involved, and they have to be very clear about who they are and who they're not, right? And also not about blaming the other person, because we tend to, like, maybe the first week the other person is perfect. Oh, they're perfect. Oh, they're amazing. Wow, this, that. Then after 1 week, oh, you know, they said this, they did this. It's normal, you know, because at the beginning in a relationship, you try to show the best version of yourself, right? Who hasn't done that? And then as time goes by, you get more comfortable, and then you think like maybe it's not so important, you know, to really just show that image, you know, because we already know each other, you know, so you get a little bit more lazy maybe, or more relaxed. And that's when the other person starts projecting on you, and they start seeing things that they don't like, because that's the nature of the mind, you know. That's what the mind does. The mind looks for mistakes, it looks for imperfections, it looks for things to be unsatisfied, things to blame, because really life is perfect and everything is perfect. If you stop thinking, there's no problems, unless you're super hungry and you're cold. But I mean, if your basic needs are covered, we don't think there's no problems. So the problems really arise, the you know, problems after the basic needs are covered. Those only arise when you think. So it is the nature of the mind to think a lot and to complicate life and to make many problems in our head, you know, like to think about the same thing again and again. If it's a problem, we tend to repeat the pattern. And we tend to also be negative in that sense. I mean, of course, you know, we overvalue negativity much more. So let's say the other person has many very good qualities, but because we overvalue negativity so much, I mean, society does it in general, and I think we grow up having that habit also. So we tend to do that, you know, we tend to, you know, if there's 1 or 2 bad qualities in the person, that's what we project, that's what we focus on, that's what we make big, that's the important aspect. Everything else doesn't matter, you know, even if they have 1,000 good qualities, it doesn't matter. They have 2 bad qualities, that's the predominant situation. So yeah, we have to be really careful about that. And of course, so if we are not working on ourselves, then any relationship is going to be unhealthy.
So in terms of working on ourselves, this kind of leads to our next 2 questions. This is, often in the relationship, our egos get in the way. So for the sake of having that healthy relationship, how do we control our egos? You mentioned always saying yes, and that sounds great, but sometimes our egos get in the way.
Sometimes, no, all the time.
All the time.
So the ego, yeah, I mean, the first step is to understand what the ego is, right? So there's different types of ego, the different aspects. But the main aspect of the ego is the one that makes us suffer. So just for example, just as an example to have an idea, okay? If you say, I am this, this is me, and this is my name, and this is my function, and this is my purpose, and this, and you start creating this kind of concept, an idea around the ego or the personality of who you are, or the idea of who you are, you will have many problems. Because you're alone, it's just you. Because in fact, we're just a process within the universe, that's it. So when you let go of this concept of me, I, which is just number one, when you actually say, I am a process within the universe, then you add infinite zeros to that one. And then that's really going to allow you to really be much more happy, much more free, and to really be able to accomplish many more things in life. Because when we get so attached to this concept of who we are or who we are supposed to be, we get lost in that concept and we don't transcend that, you know. So that's one aspect of the ego. So it's much easier to just say, you know, I'm just a process within the universe. And of course, you exist within that, you know. I mean, you don't have to fight to have a name or to fight to have a you know, that's already there. You know, the name is something, it's just one more label. So I think many times when things are difficult, when things are very hard for us, we just have to, you know, think that it's just a process. We are just a process within the universe. And that way we can empower ourselves also. We are able to take our power, you know, and not give our power away to this concept of I mean, we make ourselves so small that way. And our problems become so big. So I think that's very, very, very important, you know, regarding the ego. Of course, the ego, in one way, it can be very helpful because, of course, you can use the ego to say, you know, I want to be able to help many sentient beings. I want to improve the life of other sentient beings, starting with my life. And that, of course, that's the ego, you know, that's thinking. But that is an ego with this, you know, kind of like it's not a self-cherishing thought, you know, it's a desire to want to help, you know, so that's really compassion, you know. So then, of course, that kind of ego is different type of ego. You have to be able to differentiate, you know, you can't just generalize everything black and white. Doesn't make sense, you know, because there's a lot of gray also. So extremes are not really healthy. And I think that's when you understand that there's one aspect of your ego that is not beneficial, then that it is harmful, and that it actually makes it difficult for you to function properly, then that type of ego is good to recognize, but it's not necessary. But then the other type of ego that has a function within a process, you know, where we're able to really, you know, do something in our life and be able to offer a service, you know, to humanity or whatever. That kind of ego, I think, can be very beneficial, but it's very easy to confuse that ego. You know, I have a friend, he says, oh, my ego is Chenresic ego. It's very good. So I tease him a lot. So what? Chenresic? Oh, my ego then is Manjushri. So that can be a mistake, you know, but of course, because the border between, you know, the beneficial ego and the non-beneficial ego is very thin. And we are the number one foolers of ourselves. We always fool, like we are the number one foolers of ourselves. So like, for example, we convince ourselves, we make up things, we see things in a certain way so that we can convince ourselves that that's the right thing to do, or that's what we want, or that's what we are, or that's, and that's why I think it's very important to recognize our own bullshit, because that's the number one. That's the number one. If you cannot do that, then it's going to be very, very hard to really have a kind of harmony in your life, with the people. And even once you do recognize it, if you don't do anything about it, then also no use. So 50% is recognizing it. The other 50% is doing something about it. And when you do something about it, it's not putting responsibility on another person saying, oh, you have to do this and this and this and that, because if you don't do this, then me, I cannot change. It's not, that doesn't make any sense. So we have to make the change ourselves. And we cannot change ourselves, but we can give ourselves space for that change to occur with the intention and the direction. Okay?
Thank you, Osel. And well, I guess one thing, while we're working on ourselves, we find ourselves in relationships, and conflicts are bound to happen. Osel, are you still with us? It's okay. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I think you are. Is Osel muted or? Okay, yeah. So I was saying that often, as we're working on ourselves, we find ourselves in relationships with our romantic other, with our family, with our friends. And sooner or later, it seems like some kind of conflict is going to arise, some kind of arguments. And this gets us into our fifth question that was submitted to us. Question number 5. When we are upset with our partners, how can we best handle the negative emotions we direct towards our partners, especially when we're having an argument, we're angry, things are heated. In that moment, it can get really, really intense. So how can we best deal with those negative emotions?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question for me, because I'm the first one who is not able to manage. So I don't know if it's very adequate for me to talk about how to manage. Yeah, I mean, there's many different levels, of course, I mean, for some people, it's much easier to control their emotions. For other people, it's much more difficult. For some people, maybe different things trigger the emotion. So as long as those triggers don't occur, then it's okay, right? So maybe we think, oh, we have a very much control of our emotions. It's like the meditator who was meditating on patience, right? And he's meditating, and then somebody comes and say, what are you meditating? And he say, oh, I'm meditating on patience. Oh, really? So eat shit. And he's like, no, you eat shit, So he gets angry immediately. This is a story His Holiness tells sometimes in his teachings. So it's about, it's just about the appearance, like as long as there's nobody there that comes and pokes, and starts pushing all the buttons, then of course you can be a bodhisattva, you can be a great meditator, a great realized being, whatever you want to call yourself. Because, the anger or the emotion is hiding, it's inside. In Tibetan we say pagla shava. So, but it's there. The anger, the jealousy, all the delusion, all the bad things, everything's inside. The demons are inside of ourselves. So many people, oh, the demons are outside. Oh, no, the demons are all inside. So really, it really depends on the person. For example, for me, I have certain buttons that, for example, the mother of my son knows very well, much better than me. So I always fall in the same problem, and then of course maybe I don't fall for 1 year, and then after 1 year I fall, and then if I fall 1 minute, 2 minutes, that's already enough to make my life a hell for months. So it's probably my karma, because I have to learn, that's something that tends to happen in life. Until you don't learn something, life keeps bringing it to you again and again and again. and then until you learn, until you understand, and then you transform it and you evolve, and then some life will bring you something else. Another challenge. So for me, I haven't been able to really overcome that. I think at this stage, probably now it's easier because I don't have so much contact with the mother of my son. I try to have contact. I try to have a friendship, to be able to get along well. But I think it's we're not. It's probably not the time yet, and it's probably not. I don't know. I haven't been able. I am not able to control my buttons when in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
So I think that's very important to understand your buttons and to understand that much of our demons is inside. They're hidden, and they only come out when there's a trigger, when there's a catalyst, when there's an agent from outside that brings it up. So that's why it's very useful, actually, to be in a relationship or to live a kind of life, a family life, or a life that's not a monk. Because when you're a monk, I mean, there's a lot of aspects that you're not aware of, because there's nobody there pushing your buttons, poking you everywhere, and trying their best to really make you suffer somehow. And of course, in the end, it's you who make yourself suffer, because really the other person doesn't really have any power. One of the mistakes we make in our life is that we give our power away to people, to objects, to feelings, to thoughts, to desires, so many different things, and that's, I think, is a mistake. Because if we don't have the power, keep the power for ourselves, then it's very difficult to really channel properly. We cannot channel properly because we're lost. Because we just give our power here, there, oh, this person, that person, blah, 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 and then we don't have the correct vision, or the correct vision, I guess, the correct vision to be able to channel properly. So right now I'm in that process, and it's not an easy process, but it's very helpful in the long run. I know that in the long run it's going to be very helpful for me, but in the short run it's not easy, but anyways, so every time I think I will never jump again, I'm mistaken. Then a year passes by, and then suddenly the circumstances come together, many different things, and then you start to get. That's the ego, you see. The ego is the one that says, oh, me, right? So then you start to accumulate things. You accumulate. But if you don't have that concept of ego, me, then you don't accumulate anything. You don't accumulate any stress or anger or injustice or hate from somebody else or any of that. You're just the process of the universe, within the universe, right? So then you can be love without any kind of extra condiments or sauce or whatever you want to call it. So I think that's very important, and so I can't really, I'm not really the right person to talk about about that, but I am the right person to talk about my experience.
Gotcha.
So I think very important is when we are upset, it's not that we are upset with our partner, we are upset with ourselves. We lose patience with ourselves. So that's, I think, also one of the very important aspects, is that the patience is with yourself. So when you lose patience, you allow yourself to lose that patience. The other person can do something or not do something. The choice is yours. And as long as you're aware of that, then at least you're taking a very good step forward towards a healthy relationship, because at least you're recognizing,
Mm-hmm.
That's the advice I can give for that question.
Well, thank you.
When I achieve not reacting when everything just, what do you call it, resbalarse, we say in Spanish. In English, you don't take it, it just, what do you call it, slides, impermeable. So when I'm able to do that, then maybe I can give better advice.
Well, we certainly appreciate the advice you have given us.
Thank you.
And in your response, one of the things that I was hearing a lot about was issues of communication. There's a famous saying that communication is key to a healthy relationship. And it can often be very difficult to talk to some people, especially if they're our ex, if we're trying to talk to someone that we were once in a relationship with or that we're having conflicts with. Well, this gets us to the question that one of our members had submitted to us. This is question number 6 on our list of questions that were given to us. And it asks, how do I communicate my needs to my partner in a healthy way so that it does not turn into an argument? It seems like, we often get into conflicts when we try to communicate something that's bothering us or upsetting us. Especially if it's someone that we have strained relationships with, it can be very difficult to talk to them and have this, fruitful dialogue. So in your experience, have you found any strategies or tips or techniques that you would like to convey to us?
Yeah. Well, I think the most important aspect of communication is the listening aspect. Most of us think communication is talking, right? No. The main aspect of communication is listening. So if you're a good listener, then you're a good communicator. Just because you talk a lot does not mean you're a good communicator. Most people think that they're very good communicators because they talk a lot. No. Most people don't know how to listen. Most of us will listen to answer. We don't really listen to understand. And even when the person hasn't even finished talking, we're already thinking of what we're going to answer. We're already projecting this or projecting that. So I think that's already one thing that's very important to be aware of in communication. So even if the other person is not a very good communicator, talking or listening, if we are good listeners, we can create the situation for the other person to feel understood, even if we don't understand them. But if we do understand them and if we don't give them the space to speak and we're not able to listen, then even if we don't understand them, they will think we don't understand them. So, for example, a very important aspect of helping somebody is to show that you care, to ask questions. Instead of judging and instead of saying, oh, you should do this, you should do that, the best thing you can do is to ask questions and to listen. Really, if you really want to help somebody, I think that's really the best way. And normally when the other person is in pain or they have a conflict or they're suffering, then the way of communication will be aggressive maybe, or it will be done in a certain way. So if we are mature enough to recognize that, then we can also take the first step. Instead of taking it personally, oh, they're saying this, they're saying that about me, blah, 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 blah. Then we take it personally, then we already answer biased. Our answer can already be sarcastic because we're judging them, because maybe they're not good enough or they don't work hard enough or they're too accommodated or they complain too much or whatever, we can think so many things. So then already our attitude towards them is not that of somebody who wants to help. It's not a friend. Understand? Because in a relationship, the base of any relationship is friendship. If you don't have a friendship, then forget it. There cannot be a relationship. So that's why friendship is very, very important. And then at the time of communicating, it's very important to communicate with patience, with humility, with empathy, with understanding, all of these very important values and qualities that we all have within us. So no matter how the other person talks to us, we have to be mature enough to understand why they're talking to us like that. We instead of trying to justify that we are right and we didn't do anything wrong, which is most of the cases that's what happens. We try to protect ourselves. It's about trying to understand why they're suffering, trying to understand how you can help them, trying to understand what is really ailing them, what is the issue here, you know? Because most of the time it's probably not us. We are just the excuse to vomit everything. You know, so if we immediately take it personally, then we just fall into the same and black energy ball or snowball, whatever, you know, because we tend to think from the ego. We tend to do that a lot. We tend to protect our ego a lot also. Don't ask me why. We have to check, each of us, we have to check why we protect our ego. So I think that when at the time of communicating, I think that's very important aspects to have in mind, you know, to always go with, you know, but of course, there's also one point where if the other person is too toxic, the other person is too aggressive, then you must protect yourself. You have to cut. That's called also self-compassion, right? So you have to be able to know to differentiate when is this toxic gaslighting from the other person, which tends to happen, or when they're actually just asking for help. Also, so you can give, but there has to be a limit, because otherwise it can be harmful for both of you, both parties. So that's why it has to be very mature and very clear. You know, you have to be very clear about, not from the ego, but from the process within the universe concept. Okay.
Well, Osel, you mentioned friendship, but I think one of the things about when we have a romantic relationship, there's also this element that we have to struggle with of physical expectations, of wanting intimacy, engaging in some form of sexual intimacy and the expectations that come along with that. And speaking of those expectations, one of our members asks us, what advice would you give for dealing with cheating and unfaithfulness in a relationship?
Mm-hmm. I think that's an interesting question. I've had many relationships where my partner slept with other men. That's happened to me a lot. One of the reasons was because I really wanted to offer that person the freedom to be happy, you know, the freedom to do, you know, but it was a mistake, because in the end, that was the cause for the end of the relationship. Because in the end, eventually, by the second person they slept with, then already it becomes a little bit like personally for me, I prefer to sleep in my own room, like separate, you know, so that was already the beginning of the end of the relationship, let's say. And it's happened to me a lot. I've been in many relationships where my partner sleeps with other men. Also maybe because it's a challenge for me, you know, to work on that attachment, you know, so many demons come out. So yeah, for me, I like challenges, and it's been the case, but I do not recommend it. It's really difficult. I have a friend. He's a one of a kind. His name is Kike, and he's very open-minded. You know, like they like his partner. She has relationships with other men. You know, sometimes they go for months, and he doesn't have any problem with it. You know, like he's completely fine, and that's something that was really hard for me to understand, because of course, you know, like in my case, I wasn't fine, even though I accepted it, but I wasn't fine. I was suffering a lot. I couldn't sleep at night, you know, like when I knew that my partner was sleeping with someone else at night, I couldn't sleep that night. I would try to watch a movie, but I wouldn't be seeing the movie. Only my mind would just be going on and on and on and on. So it's very difficult to deal with attachment, especially when so hardcore like that. So it did get to a point where for me, I decided that it's better inside a relationship to try to keep that intimacy within the couple, let's say, or the two people, because I mean, unless both people are really, really open-minded and very mature, it will be a disaster. And also the other thing is that many times people cheat because they're selfish, because they want more, they're unsatisfied. They feel like, oh, I'm missing on something. And of course, in many cultures, it's normal. The lover is a normal concept. There's many countries and cultures where it's normal to have a lover. And if you don't have a lover, you're weird. It's like weird. Like in Philippines, it's like that, for example, and a few other places. So it depends also on the culture, maybe. And but if you think about it, for I don't know, maybe 40. That's what they say, 40,000 years, roundabout the Homo sapiens. But it could be much more. Who knows? Maybe it could be hundreds of thousands of years. We don't know. But let's just say for now that maybe we've been for 40,000 years. We've been living in tribes, right? Within tribes. So the custom or the belief at that time, the women, they thought that they would get pregnant by the accumulation of sperm, right? Accumulation. So they would maybe sleep with 6 or 7 men, and because maybe one was a very good hunter, the other one was a very good narrator, the other one was a good painter, the other one was a good, whatever. So they would sleep with different men that had very good qualities that they wanted for their children. So when the children was born, that kid had 6 or 7 fathers that would protect him and watch for them, So they didn't have one father, they had 6 or 7 fathers. Because all 7 men, they were, oh, that could be my son, that's my son, So he would have 7 fathers who would protect and take care of him and watch over him. So that inside the tribe, it makes sense, because it's for the child, he's going to grow up much better taken care of, with many different types of parenting and guides, and influences. But of course, today, that's unthinkable. Why? Because of course, religion appeared. So I don't want to criticize religion, because all religions have a golden rule that they all have together. But it's true that religions tend to want to put fear in you, right? They tend to put guilt in you. I don't know why. Maybe it's to help you. I don't know. But that's the thing. We in a way we tend to kind of shut ourselves more, because really, the more people we interact with, the more people we live with, the more open, the more knowledgeable, the more experience we have. If we tend to just be with one person all the time, then that sphere of knowledge and experience becomes much smaller. I'm not saying to be polygamous, don't get me wrong. I'm just giving the two different aspects, okay, for you to understand. Okay. For me personally, I prefer to have the sacred intimacy with one person, and for that to be maintained within the group, the 2 people, let's say. That for me it makes sense, okay? But for other people, the other things they like also, So you just have to know oneself well, to know what is going to be helpful or harmful for you. Because if you're not ready, you may think, oh, I'm very open-minded, I'm very unattached, but maybe you're not ready, and it can really be very, very tough. So yeah, but for me right now, I prefer to be single, so I'm much more happier like this. I have my son, my dog, and then it's the three of us. We all sleep together, hugging. And so yeah, 2 weeks a month, my son is with me. Yeah, and so yeah, so that's how I see it. You know, I think it depends. You know, so if it's very relative, but of course you have to be you have to make very clear with your partner what you want, what you don't want, and how you want to do this. This has to be something that the two of you agree on and have to respect. And I think at the moment you lie in a relationship, it's already the beginning of the end, because whether you think that the person knows it or not, you know it. It's like karma, right? Even if nobody else knows it, that karma is there because you know it, right? You have that imprint. So if you do lie, you're gonna have to live with that lie. If you act badly, you're gonna have to live with that. That's something that you're gonna have to take responsibility for. And if you don't, most probably the relationship will end. So it has to be something mutual. Both parties have to agree on the healthy state of the relationship and how it's, what do you call it, managed. Okay.
Well, you did mention, sometimes relationships come to an end.
Yeah.
But when we're in the relationship, it seems like heaven. It seems like this person is so perfect. But when the relationship, for whatever reason, comes to an end, often that's it. That's the end of the friendship. That's the end of any happy feelings we had towards them. And one of the members of our community asks, I have a strong feeling of resentment to my ex. How can I find peace? This is question number 8 on our list.
So you said something before. I forgot that you mentioned something. I was going to talk on that.
Okay, so I mentioned that, when we're in the relationship, it's really good. When it ends, it's
Okay,
really bad, and we don't want anything to do with that person. And all of our positive emotions we've had sometimes for years and years, they all become really negative.
Okay, sometimes we are in a relationship because it's convenient, and only because it's convenient, because it's more comfortable, because we are scared of getting out, of being alone. So sometimes we stay in a relationship which is maybe unhealthy and is not really working out just because it's more convenient for both parties. That's a big mistake. I mean, you have to understand that, it's convenience is not really the priority for a relationship. The priority is friendship. And that's the other thing I wanted to mention is that, for example, with me, I mean, all my ex-girlfriends are my friends. We still talk to today. I don't think I have an ex-girlfriend who I don't talk with and we are not friends. But that's also because the base of the relationship was friendship. It wasn't anything else. It was friendship. So even when the relationship finishes, the friendship stays there. Because otherwise, maybe you have a relationship 2, 3, 4 years, and then it ends, and then you don't have that friendship anymore. Then what's the use? It's such a waste of time. Those 3, 4 years meant nothing. Of course, many times the partner, maybe you try to have a good attitude, but the person they don't really care. They have zero interest in really having a good attitude. So in that case, I can understand that it's very hard. It's very hard because, of course, it's not so much resentment. It's also trauma. Like, for example, for me, I'm really, really, really traumatized by the relationship that I have of the mother of my son. The trauma is like almost unbearable. You know, it's very, very dark, you know, and of course the resentment comes up, but immediately I try to transform it. Also because of my son, because my son is there. If my son wasn't there, I mean, we wouldn't probably even talk to each other since 2 months. You know, like we met, we're together for 2 months, and probably that would have been it. But because we got pregnant, then we had to go through all that. I mean, we are completely dysfunctional as a couple. We used to be very toxic also, and of course, you know, like from my side, I try to do my best. Of course, I make mistakes also, but when the other person has that intention of really trying to harm you, it becomes difficult not to have resentment or not to be traumatized. But for me, the best way to transform that is through the power of love. You know, by really having compassion for that person, really trying to understand that person, you know, as yourself, you know, try to put yourself in the position of that person. Of course, you can try to have a good relationship, you can try to have a friendship. If the person doesn't have interest, then it's a waste of time. But you can try at least. But the important thing is that to let go of all of that. Because as long as you have that resentment and you have that trauma and that pain, you are the one who has to channel it. You are the one who has to carry it. And in time, it will become a really bad weight. I'm speaking from experience.
Mhm.
It can be really, really, really difficult, especially if there's a kid involved, you know, because sometimes the mother uses a kid against you, you know, like, anyways, I'm not going to get into that, but my parents used to do that a lot. I mean, I think many parents do it, you know, when they use the kid to get at the other person, right? For me, that affects me a lot. That's just is so overwhelming because I just cannot understand. I cannot understand why you use a kid. You know, like it's so basically I suffer because I cannot understand. It's like it's all upside down. It's a little bit like when you see war, you know, it's legal and people giving medals for killing people, or when you see a little bit what's happening in the world and it's like you just don't understand, you know, it's like everything is upside down and becomes almost unbearable because there's nothing to comprehend. So in the end, the only thing that works for me is to tell myself there is nothing to understand. Even if you try to understand all your life, some things there's nothing to understand. It's just the way people are. Some people just are like that. And some people will never change in that aspect. So you just have to accept, you just have to understand that there's nothing to understand. and then you just have to try to give the best of you. And maybe slowly the other person will transform or not. But at least you're not channeling all that shit, you know. At least you've transformed it from your side and you're able to offer a kind of a possibility or an example for the other person to see and to learn from.
Well, Otso, I guess some of the things that you raised, these actually come up in some of our final two questions that we have. One of them is, okay, you mentioned how you're able to stay friends with many of your exes, and that's often not the case for many of us. And I think part of it is because the breakup is so nasty and so vicious. And one of our members asks, how can I end a romantic relationship?
Yeah, but that it doesn't have to be like that.
Okay.
It doesn't have to. The breakups don't have to be nasty and vicious. If the relationship is based on respect and friendship. Sorry.
Oh, you're just saying about giving us advice on breaking up and how it doesn't have to be nasty and vicious.
You know, I thought you said something. No, so really, I mean, a relationship, I mean, even if a relationship ends, friendship is still there. That's what many people don't understand. You know, they just go from one extreme to another extreme, from being obsessed and having this perfect idealization of someone to hating the person and blaming all the problems to that person. Blaming all the problems to that person. So that's one extreme to the other extreme. And that happens a lot. And that's because we are not aware of our mind and our process, our thoughts. We just project. We want to have somebody guilty. So then everything's on them. We are perfect. We didn't make any mistake, we're superior, whatever. But that's a mistake because nobody is superior to anybody. Nobody knows more than another person. Everybody knows different. And everybody is different. That's it. So you can't really compare. So I think also that's one of the reasons why relationships become so toxic, is because we get into this pattern. And many times we tend to repeat the same pattern with the next partner and the next partner and the next partner. Because we don't want to do that work. We're not willing to do that work because we're not willing to recognize that maybe the problem is within us. Right?
Yeah.
It's much easier to blame. So, but I mean, I was with Sarah, with this Italian girl. She's wonderful. We're very good friends. We're best friends, really. And we were together. We lived together for 1.5 years. Now she's in Italy, so we're like giving each other space. But we talk to each other all the time, and I'm sure when we see each other, we're gonna be very good friends. It's not gonna be there's not gonna be any kind of problem. Maybe I'm projecting, but we have a good relationship because we have a good friendship. So that friendship is always there. Because the relationship can come and can go. That's not really important. But we get so attached to this concept of the relationship. My boyfriend, my girlfriend, mine, with me. Like that is, I think, big mistake. So if we can let go of that, then the friendship is there. And then we can really enjoy, we can really be happy. We can really give the best and receive the best.
Well, thank you, Osel. And we just have one final question. It's related to people who find themselves in a similar circumstance as you, where maybe a relationship has ended, but they still have, there's kids involved. So just based on your experiences, any general advice for parenting in the modern world?
Yeah, parenting. It's sometimes I think it's much better if the parents separate, because for the kids, if they're very toxic. For example, in my case, it's much better that we separated. It's much better that we have distance, even though we live just maybe 3 minutes away from each other. And I see my son maybe every week. So during a whole week, he's with me, and then during a whole week, I barely see him. It wasn't like that before, because we did have a friendship for over 1 year. But that finished because our egos got involved again. And I didn't guard my emotions properly, because there's a point where you trust, you forget, you relax, and that's the most dangerous moment. It's like when you're driving, if you don't know very well how to drive a motorbike or a car, it's more safe. It becomes dangerous when you know how to drive very well, when you control very well. That's when it becomes dangerous. When you think that you know very well, then you make a mistake, and then you can have a big accident. That's why it's very important to always have respect to the road, and always drive for others. You're driving, but you're always aware of everything everybody else is going to do or doing. So it's similar like that. in a relationship, we have to be always have that respect, you know, and always be ready, you know, with our guard up. Cannot relax, because then that can happen. So in the end, you know, because of that, because of my mistake, Nobu, my son, he suffered. You know, he suffers because now he there's a disconnect. You know, like I mean, it's or his dad only or only his mom. When before it was a privilege for me. Before I mean, anytime could go to visit him, or she could come to visit him. You know. Anyways, hopefully that will be able to recover that again, but it takes a lot of time because some people are very resentful, and I don't know why. For me, it's very difficult to understand the concept of resentment, because for me, I immediately I forgive me. I cannot not forgive. Like it's really important for me to forgive and to you know clarify and to make peace. You know, to have that friendship. Otherwise, I can't even sleep properly, you know. So, but of course, not everybody's like that. Some people are different. Everybody's different. So I have to respect that. And I think for Nobu, it's much healthier now that we're not together. He doesn't have to eat that toxicity, let's say, because my relationship with my son is very, very good and healthy. And his relationship with his mother also is very good and healthy. The problem is the relationship between his father and his mother. That's the problem. That's really the issue. So I think sometimes it's very important to be very wise and to really avoid any kind of discussion in front of the kid. I think that's so important. And of course, however you act, that's how the kid is going to act. If you shout, then the kid is going to think that's how you communicate, by shouting. You know, if you insult, if you're toxic, if you're resentful, that's how they think that's how it goes, you know. So for me, the most important part is to really give a lot of love to Norbu constantly, and I think by giving him all the love and attention, really being there for him, that is enough for him to not be affected by the past toxicity that may have happened, you know, moving into the future. So I really tried that. I really try my best to always be the best father possible, because I mean I never really had a father or a mother. You know, I grew up alone mostly, and the people who were taking care of me were changing constantly. So for me, it's an opportunity to be able to offer Nobu what I never had, you know, which is something that I cherish a lot. So also, because me, I wasn't really able to have a childhood because by the age of 18 months, I was already working. I was already sitting on a throne and giving blessings and receiving offerings with money. You know, so for me, that's work, that's a job, right? And so when I wasn't even 2 years old, I was already working, literally. So I never really got a chance to have a childhood. I never really got a chance to be a kid. So with Nobu, I'm his father, but I'm also his brother, his younger brother. So many times I have that different kind of process with him. You know, on one side I'm his father, because imagine, like for example, it's very important to put limits. You know, like if you imagine that you are you what do you call it? You have bandage in your eyes, right? And you're trying to see where the walls are in the darkness. If there are no walls, you can get really scared and agitated, right? But when you know where the walls are, then you at least can situate yourself and you're more relaxed. So that's a little bit the metaphor for the guidance for a child. You know, it's like you have to learn from the kid, because the kids are much wiser than you. But at the same time, you have to show them the limits. That's your responsibility, for them to have that healthy aspect, you know, where they know, okay, so, you know, here's a wall, they know where they're situated, they know where the position, you know, where the area where they move. So that's what I try to do as a father. I try to, really put the limits and the structure, offer the whole structure and be there for him. But many times when I'm with him, I become a kid. I'm 3 years old also, because I remember when I was 3 years old. When I was 3, 4 years old, I used to practice my smile in the mirror, and I used to go like that. I used to practice my smile. And so that's hilarious. Of course, that was my job, right? My job was to smile and to do like that to everybody. Hello. So I used to practice that smile. And so I remember when I was that age, and when I play with Nobu, I'm in a way, recovering my childhood as well, because I become a child too many times. So we have very good connection. We really, there's a magic, him and me, we understand each other very well, because he's an adult in a way, because he's very mature and very prepared, but he's a child, and I'm an adult because I have the age of an adult, but I'm a child, really, in my mind. I still haven't really been able to, get my structure and be a 100% adult, because I was basically just thrown into society, and I've had to kind of find my way, and I have a lot of trauma and a lot of mental problems, which I've had to deal with by myself without any help. I mean, many people have helped. Friends, true friends, have been there to help me, but it's been something really tough, and I haven't been able to overcome it yet. I hope I can soon. I mean, I think I still have at least another 15 years of healing. But of course, in the process with Nobu, it's amazing. It's priceless. It's like living two lives. It's like being his father and his son. Sometimes sometimes Nobu would take my head, and he'll put my head on his chest like that. He'll be like, like he would just hold me like that. He's so loving. Just for no reason at all. He's very physical. He likes contact. Because also I give him a lot of love, because I never really had any kind of physical contact as a child, and people were prohibited to even touch my head or caress me or whatever, or even hug me. So that's something that I missed a lot in my childhood. Any kind of, physical contact I didn't miss, but affectionate physical contact is something that I missed a lot. So that's something that I give so much. I give so much to know, because I have it. Even if I didn't receive it, I have it. It's there. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing broken. There's nothing squashed. Everything is there. It's all about the mind. The mind is the one who decides who you want to be and how you want to be, right? And of course, there's many different moments. There's moments where you can have total darkness, but those moments are impermanent and they change. So as long as you're aware of that, then you can slowly transform it. It takes time. It's very slow process, but life is beautiful, and we are here to live it, and then we are here to share. And even in Dharma, if there's no sentient beings, then how can you practice compassion? How can you reach enlightenment, right? So life is really about sharing. Life is really about interacting and understanding. There's a famous writer, French writer, his name is Alfred Jarry. There's something he wrote that really was interesting for me, that he said, it's not interesting to be free alone. So it's not interesting, of course, according to Dharma, it doesn't make sense, because once you're liberated from nirvana, from samsara, when you reach nirvana, you're free, so it's not like that you're alone or anything like that. But I think that concept of that person is very interesting, because he's talking about, reaching nirvana alone is not interesting. And I agree. I think life is really about sharing and about interacting and about learning and growing together. If you don't have that, for me, it doesn't really make much sense. You know, it doesn't make sense. Life is about really about others. Yeah, so I just need to finish. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Osel, for your time. And the only last request we would make, Osel, would you mind leading us in a dedication prayer before we pass it on to someone else for some final announcements? Would you mind just maybe leading us in a dedication? Would you mind offering a dedication for us?
Maybe you write it.
Okay.
It breaks up a lot. I can't hear.
Okay,
All right, Tyler,
I'd like to offer.
I think I'll pass it on to you. Rinpoche, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure meeting you. We do, everyone, have some final announcements by a member of our community and a very good friend of mine, Tyler Hume. So Tyler, I'm gonna take it away.
Thank you. Before I get to those, I'll close this out by dedicating merit. By the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Om. So Osel, this has been wonderful. Thank you for being candid and available to speak about these topics that, you know, aren't often discussed in this way in a traditional Dharma talk. And as a gesture of our gratitude, we'd wish to also offer you this long life prayer. Venerable One, to you whose kindness exceeds that of all the conquerors, for those wanderers in far off places, especially the West, mindful of your loving concern for us and intentionally descending again into a family of a far distant land, we make this request. Lama, please, please live long. Okay, so today's wonderful event has been brought to all of us by the Tara Buddhist Center in Nashville, Tennessee, which was founded and is operated by Paloma Garcia under the spiritual direction of Yangtze Rinpoche, along with spiritual advisement from Kangze Rinpoche. And during the last year, when the physical doors of Tara have been unfortunately closed, the center has continued to provide many rich online teachings such as this one. These teachings do come with inherent costs above those associated with maintaining the physical center. And the center operates and depends entirely on the generous donations of those who it serves. We ask that you please consider a dana offering, which is facilitated through the tarabuddhistcenter.com website. There you can also find a link to many upcoming classes, including a very special upcoming event in just 2 weeks on April 2nd with Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo, founder of Dongyu Gyatso Nunnery, a brilliant teacher who also spent 12 years in meditation in a cave in northern India and who was subject of the biography Cave in the Snow. We certainly hope to be with all of you then. Additionally, tomorrow is International Day of Forests, and as such is an opportunity to engage with the Global Tree Initiative. We ask all to please visit plantgrowsave.org, where we can find inspiration on how to be part of this wonderful initiative founded by Osel. Links to support for this organization can also be found on that site. That's plantgrowsave.org. It's only through the engaged participation of all of the hard work it's through the participation of all of us that these intentions of the founders and organizers can be actualized and manifested. And now with more on this, I'd like to invite Anna Colau from GTI to speak more to the Global Tree Initiative so that we can learn a little bit more. Anna, if you'd like to speak, if you could please unmute.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. And Osel, thank you so much for your honesty and raw authenticity. I think so many of us have experienced trauma and a bit broken around the edges, and it's so nice to have that to relate to. So I mainly just want to say thank you to everyone. We've been running a campaign in the Global Tree Initiative to appoint a junior executive, and we've actually raised 21,000 out of the 24,000 that we're trying to raise. So we just wanted to say a massive thank you. Our movement has now connected, I think we're planting in 40 countries now, including Israel, Vietnam, Cyprus. We've got loads going on in the UK. We have 2 planting sites in the UK, one at Land of Joy and one in Leeds. And we also have a site in Nepal. For me personally, GTI has given me a method to heal myself and to connect with my family and friends through a method that is completely acceptable and universal to them. And I would just say, if you have the opportunity to germinate a seed, to watch a seed grow, or to plant a seed, or to just be in the woodland and help the new trees, yeah, I would. It's a privilege and an honor. I'm so grateful to Osel. I'm so grateful to Jackie. I hope you join our family because it's the most wonderful vibe. Thank you. Thanks, Taylor. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So finally, in closing, the Tara Buddhist Center would like to extend its vast and endless gratitude to Tenzin Osel Hita. Please sign up for his blog, One Big Love, to receive his newsletters also. Endless thanks to all of the translators that have made this available to practitioners across our worldwide Sangha, as well as Jackie Keeley, Secretary to Tenzin Osel, and CEO of GTI for her gracious help. And now in final closing, I'd like to offer a final word of thanks from Tara Buddhist Center President Paloma Garcia and open the lines to everybody as we conclude today.
Thank you, Osel. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And now you can unmute to say goodbye to Osel.
Thank you, everyone.
Tyler. Nice job, Tyler. Beautiful. Thank you, Rohi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paloma.
Thank you, Osala. Feel better.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicole, too.
Thank you, everyone, for this opportunity. Thank you.
Everyone have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Grazie a tutti. Thank you very much.
Grazie.
Gracias, Osel. Gracias por la traducción.
Thank you, also amazing, profound teaching.
Saúde e paz, Osel. Saúde e paz.
Thank you, Osel.
Thank you, also. Thank you, everyone.
From Sweden.
Hello from Sweden.